The problem with anti-Semitism from the far left is that it oftentimes is smuggled into the mainstream under the guise of progressive values.
When thinking about anti-Semitism in America, I think it's clear that it comes from the right wing. When you have President Trump saying there are very fine people on both sides in Charlottesville, when one side are neo-Nazis, it's clear that he's dog-whistling to his far right-wing base. Or when you have the Pittsburgh synagogue shooter engaged in anti-Semitic social media posts before the shooting, it's clear that this is a right-wing issue. But according to New York Times op-ed editor and writer Bari Weiss, she thinks that the more dangerous aspects of anti-Semitism come from the left. Here she is on The View.
As you said, when you see people marching with tiki torches or you hear the Pittsburgh killer writing on social media, "All Jews must die," that's very obviously eliminationist. The problem with anti-Semitism from the far left is that it oftentimes is smuggled into the mainstream under the guise of progressive values. So it says about itself, I'm just standing up for the downtrodden Palestinians, which they are. I am just standing up for justice. I'm standing against racism. And so that kind of language is a siren song, including to Jews, 75% of whom vote for Democrats. And so that's the problem with it, is that it's not as easy to spot, oftentimes because it says we're just about criticizing Israel. In the case of Ilhan,
Nancy Pelosi shut it down?
Nancy Pelosi shut it down very aggressively with Ilhan Omar. The problem is that she still has a spot on the Congressional Foreign Affairs Committee.
All right. This is just too stupid. When you out-stupid Meghan McCain on The View, you're something special. So Bari Weiss here says anti-Semitism is not as easy to spot on the left. Yeah, maybe because it's not really there. Now, the left, so what she is saying here is that by being critical of the Israeli government, well, then that means it's harder to spot the anti-Semitism because it's not as obvious because they're voicing legitimate criticisms about what the Israeli government is doing. So where's the actual anti-Semitism? Do you have any examples? So this is the problem here. The left wing has a legitimate criticism of a far right-wing Israeli government, and yet somehow that is being construed as anti-Semitic. So let me show you why the left is so aligned on this issue. Now, look, when we talk about the left, I'm talking about actual lefties. The Democratic Party is not aligned on this issue, but the actual left, yes, is critical of Israel, much like they are other countries like Saudi Arabia. So here is why we care so much. So this is a piece from a Jewish American journalist, Peter Beinart, who wrote in Forward.com, establishing two legal systems in the same territory, one for Jews and one for Palestinians, as Israel does in the West Bank, is bigotry. Guaranteeing Jews in the West Bank citizenship, due process, free movement, and the right to vote for the government that controls their lives, while denying those rights to their Palestinian neighbors, is bigotry. Now, this is just one example. I'm not even bringing up the human rights abuses and murder in the Gaza Strip, but when we are talking about a far right-wing Israeli government and launching criticisms at that government, we are not being anti-Semitic. It is a criticism of how the Israelis are treating Palestinians in Israel. So this is an issue with the Israeli government. Now look, there are going to be assholes in every movement. Are there anti-Semitic people in this movement against Israel? Yeah. Probably, there definitely is, because there's assholes in every movement. I'm a huge Bernie supporter. Are there assholes that support Bernie Sanders? Absolutely. Every group of people are going to have some assholes in them. So this is not to paint the entire left that has a critique of Israel with the few assholes in it that are actually anti-Semitic is ridiculous. So let me show you how ignorant journalists are about this. So here is a tweet from journalist Julia Ioffe. She is a very well-respected journalist in the Washington Post, New York Times, GQ. She tweeted this out about Ilhan Omar, and look how quickly she got refuted. So she tweets out, I, for one, would love to hear Ilhan Omar's opinions about the fealty the American establishment accords the Saudi regime or our steadfast alliance with Egypt and Pakistan. surely her condemnations of the excesses of those governments are just as fiery. And then, as there was a reply from Ishan Tharoor, he said, with her tweet, Ilhan Omar's tweet, directly calling out the Saudi government, the Saudi government might have been strategic at covering up the daily atrocities carried out against minorities, women, activists, and even the Yemen genocide, but the murder of Jamal Khashoggi should be the last evil act they are allowed to commit. Ilhan Omar has a long history of standing up for human rights worldwide. She stands up against human rights abuses committed by whoever it is, whether it's the Israeli government or whether it's Saudi Arabia or other states. She is vocal on this, as all lefties are. Yet somehow, what people like Bari Weiss try to do is say, oh, they're just critical of Israel and nobody else. Just utter crap. Now, let me show you another example. This is back in 2013 of Ilhan Omar being critical of Saudi Arabia. Stories like these should cause Muslims all over the world to boycott Hajj this year. Sri Lanka maid beheaded in Saudi. Now, as Progressive Voice tweeted out, really disappointed. Didn't know Ilhan was an Islamophobe. Obviously, joking because Ilhan Omar is Muslim. So the idea that, look, she's being critical of Saudi Arabia, oh, I guess she's Islamophobic, is just as dumb as saying that she's anti-Semitic for being critical of Israel. So it's unbelievable the kind of legs this dumbass critique from Bari Weiss continues to get. And it's not just her critique. A lot of people in the center and on the right have this stupid critique. And it makes me question why. I mean, how can somebody be this dumb? And how can the media be so stupid to continue giving this a voice? Now, there are the rare people, surprisingly, that are even on Fox News that do not agree with Bari Weiss in that opinion. So Geraldo Rivera, of all people, tweeted this out. I'm a proud Jewish Zionist who is critical of Israel's occupation of Palestine. Isn't there space for secular criticism? And why is this representative, speaking of Omar, getting so much grief? And AIPAC is not a lobby? Give me a break. So you have Geraldo Rivera of Fox News being on the correct side of this issue. Understand here, there are people out there. A lot of the critiques of Israel are coming from Jewish people. So this idea that what Bari Weiss essentially is doing is erasing all those people that are Jewish, that are critical of the Israeli government, and saying, oh no, any critique of Israel, no, it must be shrouded in hatred and bigotry and anti-Semitism of the Jewish people. Like, what are you talking about? They don't have any real examples. They just mask any critique of the right-wing Israeli government as anti-Semitic. Now, while this is all happening, you have actual bigotry taking place. So check out this. Trump campaign advisor calls Ilhan Omar filth. Or how about this? Democratic Representative Ilhan Omar likened to 9/11 terrorist in poster at Republican event. So while all this distraction about, oh, the left is being anti-Semitic is going on, you have actual bigotry being launched at Ilhan Omar from Republicans. That's being completely ignored. So understand, when the right has a legitimate criticism of the far right-wing Israeli government, that is not being anti-Semitic. It is a criticism of the government and how they are oppressing Palestinians. And that same sort of criticism is launched at other states and other nations like Saudi Arabia. Constantly, the left is consistent on these issues, on the issues of human rights. But when you have people like Bari Weiss, people in the center and people on the right ignoring the actual bigotry being launched at Ilhan Omar, it shows you who is on the correct side of this issue.